documented system or high performance team, and with a question mark, and then that will solicit feedback. So, all right, let's do this. Get that going. All right, one more thing. Secure participants. And Gary co-host. Gene, I'm going to transfer a host ownership to you. Okay. And I'm just going to be a mere peon on the screen here. There you go. Okay. So, welcome everybody to this week's edition of the 10X Business Owners Mastermind Group Call, episode 107. Okay, and so I'm super excited today because I've got I'm gonna just pause and let that affect the Coach Gary with businesscoach.com on the live call today. Now, the only reason I paused there is this guy was around just like I was, and like most of you are. Some of you actually were not even born yet when the United States government allowed the public to have access to the global internet. And they started putting out all these domains. I mean, Dan's old enough. I'm old enough to remember .com was coming. I mean, the amount of money that was made during that time, I would love to go back and repeat that because, you know, the world's coming to the end the moment the clock goes from 1999 to 2000. But during that time, Time Magazine came out with The End of the Mall. Okay, it's when the internet came out, and it really ushered in the internet because we didn't know at the time. Like we were emailing and sending carrier pigeons and all this other stuff to communicate. And so Coach Gary said, hey, you know what? This thing's going to be a big deal. I'm going to buy businesscoach.com. Okay, businesscoach.com. So he's been coaching businesses forever. Okay. And he and I have known each other for, well, going on 11 years. And we've, I wouldn't consider us competitors. I mean, we're going after the same client. He's going after a bigger client. I'm going after, we just decided to combine forces this year. We still have both our separate companies, but we formed a thing called Kingdom Impact Consulting Group. And Gary and I are partners in that. And the whole thing is geared towards providing a business ecosystem for faith-based businesses. And so Gary pretty much runs the operations in the business, runs everything. Here's a secret for all of you small business owners. Find yourself an integrator to either hire or partner with, and then get out of their way. And so that is a great segue into me getting out of Gary's way today, because today's call is all about operations and systems. And the title of this call is, would you rather have a perfectly documented system and processes or a high-performing team? So with that said, and without further ado, Coach Gary.
Thank you, John. What a great introduction. And I'm assuming everybody can hear me okay. If I'm too loud or too soft, please let me know, Gene. You can tone me down a little bit there or prop me up. Thank you for the great introduction, John. And I'm really looking forward to teaching this class because this is like a series that we're doing. You know, you can't cover business. You can't cover all the aspects of business or even the most important aspects of business in weekly calls or an hour at a time. So this is a piece to the puzzle that I think is the most significant piece that any business owner can add to their business, whether it's large or small. So what's more important to you, scaling your business or having a perfectly documented system or a high performance team? And here's my answer to your question. I'll answer it for you so it can make it real simple for you. Sit back and relax and hear what I've learned from business owners all over the world for the last 37 years. The answer is, let's have both. Let's have a well-documented system and process and operation system that we can operate our business, and let's have a high-performing team. And we're not going to be able to teach all of that today, but what we're going to do is we're going to give you some tools, some books, and some ideas so that you can look at intellectually and spiritually, you can look at yourself and say, am I doing what it takes to make my business successful? Or am I coasting along and coming up with excuses and reasons and justifications for my behavior? So we want to take a look at our behavior and see what choices are we making and what are we doing to move the needle as quickly as we can and as successfully as we can and as powerfully as we can without sacrificing, without making sacrifices for ourselves, for our team, for our employees, for the people around us, for our vendors, for our customers, and making the most of everything that we do. So we're going to get into that today. And as John has introduced me, who I am is somebody who's worked with over 500 different organizations. And I've gleaned from each and every organization that I've worked with over these 37 years that I've been doing this, and finding out what are the secrets, what are the inside tips, what are the things that are making these businesses most successful, and then bringing my expertise and my balance and my coaching process, consulting, mentoring process to each one of these organizations and helping them see for the first time some things that they haven't been able to look at. My metaphor for that is the thing that I show people oftentimes is they're looking at their business with one hand tied behind their back, or looking at through the lens or the prism of seeing just a part of what's possible for their business. So we're going to look at all that today. And I would suggest to you that we can have fun doing this. Don't take this personally. If you find something that's really difficult or hard for you to a hard pill for you to swallow, then just go ahead and accept it and say, hey, that's what I have been doing, or that's what's worked for me in the past, or hasn't worked for me in the past. And now today, I'm going to make a stand. I'm going to make a choice to do some things differently and take a look at my business from a different aspect, a different angle. And at the end of the call today, we'll have time for Q&A. So hopefully, if I can get through all of the material that I've got in store for you today, at the end, we'll have time for Q&A, and you can ask me some questions or John some questions, and we can give you some of the real world experience as to what we have experienced working with dozens and hundreds, in fact, thousands of business people over the years, and what's worked for them and what hasn't worked for them. So we're gonna take a little bit of a different spin today, as you can already gather, because we're talking to different audiences. We're talking to a lot of different people. People that are starting up their business will be watching this. People that have experience and they've gotten 2, 3, 5, 10 employees for their business, and people that maybe have 30, 40, 50, or 100 employees for their business. It's all going to be directed towards all of you, and we're going to segregate out a little bit of that and speak to all groups at the same time, and speak to some things that are really powerful business tools and techniques that you can employ in your business, deploy in your business right away, okay? So we'll be looking at these different angles of your business. And the first thing I want to take a look at is I want you to be really, really clear and answer this question for yourself. What do I really want? What do I really want for my business? And before we start putting in key performance indicators and looking at your team and how you can move the ball forward for your business, you need to take a really hard look at answering a tough question. Most of my clients over the years have had difficulty answering this question. Sometimes I have difficulty answering the question, what is it that I really want? Do I want a high performance team, a high performing organization? Do I want lots of profit? Do I want to make a lot of money over a short period of time or a long period of time? Do I want a sustainable business, one that sustains itself over years and it lasts and it grows and it takes care of itself? Or here's another aspect that John and I talk about all the time. What if you could get a business that not only sustains itself and grows and is very profitable, but at the same time, it doesn't require you to be there 24/7. It doesn't require you to go to bed at night thinking, oh, I got to jump out of bed and make a list of some things that I forgot to do today or that I need to accomplish tomorrow. So the first question that we need to answer for ourselves before we go any further with systems and processes and looking at our employees and how we can grow our business is, what do I really want? Do I want a business that I can put some things into place, some systems and processes and a team in place that pretty much runs on its own? And then I can be a true leader and stand back and take a look at my organization and look and see, what are the things that could use the fine tuning? What are the things that would help me grow and develop my business model and my business without me having to be there with my foot on the gas or my foot on the brake all the time, watching and measuring what's the most important aspect of my business and how am I impacting that? So one thing to take a look at is, what do we want for ourselves? And what kind of a business model do I want to create that's going to sustain itself and it's going to serve me? Now, I don't like to talk about this process of, of me personally or you personally all the time, but we have to be selfish as business owners in this particular example. And we've got to get really, really clear on what it is that we want and what type of business model are we building before we go any further. Because if you can't ask that question, if you don't understand that, then you're building a house, a strong, well-built business or house on a quicksand basis, foundation, and eventually it topples down. However, if you're very, very clear on the type of business model you want, the type of employees that you're going to be bringing to that business model, the type of future that you want, and the amount of hours that you're willing to invest in your company, if you can answer those questions and you're really, really clear on the answers to those questions, then you can build a very strong foundation and a very strong company that will serve you. And again, I don't like to use the word selfish very often, but this is the time when you need to be very, very clear with yourself and very selfish about answering these questions. What do I want, and what type of business model and business am I building? So that I'm not building something that at the end of the day, I get close to retiring, or I want to put a succession plan in place and the business is all built around me and it doesn't have a foundation that will sustain itself for the next generation, the next owner, the next success story. So in the words of Dr. Stephen Covey, he worded it this way, and he felt so strongly about it, he wrote a book on it. The answer to the question is what do I really want? What am I building? And begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. So we're beginning today to create a foundation, to take a look at a business model that's going to sustain itself, and we're going to live in the now. We're going to build for the future, and we're going to look at, what's the end game? Am I going to cash out of this end game in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Do I have people around me that I can build a succession plan and put in place something that will succeed itself when I'm not there, that will grow itself without me having to be there 14, 16, 18 hours a day? Is it something that is 5 years from now, I can build up and have enough equity designed inside of the business that a buyer comes along and says, I want to buy that business? I had some clients a couple of years ago that were in Tennessee, and we started working on developing their business, and they were very, very good at operations, but not good at details. They were very, very good at building the business, but not building a vision. They were very, very good at succeeding and making profit. But the two owners that owned the business, and I'll give you an idea, it was a $25 million annual revenue business. They were very good at building the business and operating the business, but they couldn't step away. One or the other of them, or both of them, had to be there all the time. One of the partners was more on the admin operations side of the business. The other partner was more on the sales and marketing type of the side of the business. And both of them were required to be there an average of about 55 or 60 hours a week. Were they making money? Absolutely. They were doing really, really well. They were bringing something in the neighborhood of $1 million net to the bottom line every single year. They were able to buy one of the buildings that they had their business housed in. They had a really strong equity position. And one day they said to me, you know, Coach Gary, if we could find somebody who'd be willing to pay us $5 million for this business, one of us wants to retire. He's a little older and he wants to spend more time in a retirement space. And the other one wanted to work for another 2, 3, 5 years. He was going to get remarried and had kind of some plans for the future, but he wanted to be part of a business, either that business or another business for 3 to 5 years and walk away. So as we developed a business, as we started to look at and answer the question, what do you guys really want? What's the future look like? How have you incorporated those really dynamic, hardworking, dedicated, committed employees into the organization, but yet you're still required to be there all these hours? You're kind of babysitting every part of the business because you're afraid to walk away. You're afraid that something's not going to work with you not being there all the time, at least one of you being there all the time, if not both of you being there all the time. So we took not one, but 2 or 3 steps back, and we started looking at their business model. And we started looking at the way that they related to their employees and the way that they had not defined or designed a culture of accountability. And I don't like saying this, and it's not the right necessarily audience to say this, but a lot of times I say to business owners, you've been lucky to build a business with this kind of profit and this kind of equity in your business. You've been lucky despite yourself, despite not having a vision for the future, despite not having a succession plan. Despite not understanding what is the equity in your building worth? What is the equity in your business worth? So we had an independent person come in and appraise the business with the thought of, if they could get $5 million in total sales as a sale price for the business, that they would walk away and they would sell it. And they both had agreed, yeah, probably the owner's going to want us to stick around for 6 months to a year and run the business, and one of us will run operations and the administrative side of the business. And the other one will run sales and marketing, and we'll introduce the new management team. So as it turns out, we had the business a rough appraisal of the business after looking at the books and what they had available, not counting the real estate, an appraisal of $12 million for their business. And all of a sudden, this is a game changer. The attitude changes, their relationship to each other changes, their relationship to the business changes. They start taking the blinders off and they see a different business model. They're looking at their clients differently. They're looking at their vendors differently. They're looking at their business plan, which was written on a napkin, by the way. $25 million, and these guys are operating out of a napkin business plan. So they're starting to look at their business differently, and all of a sudden, they're saying to themselves, well, we're not charging enough for our product. We're not charging our clients enough. We're working on good margins, but they're thin margins compared to the rest of our industry. We could be charging more. We built this business, and 9 years ago, we started the business, and that was the pricing that was prevalent at the time. We haven't increased our prices, but the industry has increased their prices 15, 20, 25%. It's no wonder we're doing all this business. People want to do business with us, and it's easy for us to gain new clients because we're undercharging for the market. Now, yes, they're making money. They're happy. They're satisfied with the business model. It's building equity. They're being able to buy the building. But this is what it looks like when you answer the question, what do I really want, and what do I how do I build my business so that it is sustainable and has a future? And what are the dates and times that I want either my employees or another person to come in and take over that business and purchase it from me? And if you wait till the end, then you find out that the business is too built upon your personality, upon your standards, your business ideas. And now it doesn't run well without you. So the buyer is wanting to discount the value of your business. So today we're looking at building a business and beginning with the end in mind. We're looking at the future and saying, we're going to build a business that instead of me working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, I'm going to work 25 hours a week. And instead of building a business and figuring it out when I'm in my 50s or 60s or 70s that I want to sell the business, and now I realize it's not worth what it could have been worth had I begin with the end in mind and started looking at the future from this point forward and developing systems and processes so that the business can run itself without me having to be there all the time to babysit it, or me and my partner, or me and my general manager having to be there all the time and work long, hard hours to make sure that the business succeeds itself. So I think we've set a good foundation now. We understand what it is that we want to take a look at. Now let's take a look at a couple of things that we can measure and see what kind of systems and processes and team we can put in place to support what we want. Because if we know what we want and we're going for that, like our life depends on it, and it does, your business life depends on it, then what we want to do is put systems and processes and people in place and create a business model that's sustainable and that works for us. And as it turns out, it's a win-win. It works for them too. So we want to create a sustainable business model that works for us and works for the people that are working for us. And as we onboard people, we want them to know clearly what our expectations are for each employee and each business partner and associate that we associate ourselves with. So if you're taking notes, or if you're not taking notes, shame on you. But if you're taking notes, the first thing that you want to make sure that you write down is, what do I want for my business and my future? And the second thing is making your expectations clear to each and every employee that you hire, each and every employee that's there working for you now, each and every employee that is a part of your business model. Even if they're a subcontractor or 1099, you need to make sure your expectations of their performance is clear. Because what we're going to talk about next is measuring performance and measuring your business model. And how are you doing really? And if your expectations are clear, then you can begin to slowly step away from the business.
Gary, let me
Yes,
ask you, let me insert
please,
something quick.
please do.
So I'm going to get a little vulnerable here. Okay.
Uh-oh.
And so, because a lot of you, hundreds of you, thousands of you are listening to this recording. Okay. And you've been following me or following people for a long time. And I've been building companies now for 34 years, built $3 million companies. I mean, you guys all know my story. So here we are 2 weeks ago, I'm in Florida, okay, driving down the road, and Gary and I are having a partner call, okay? And so now keep in mind, Gary and I are forming a company together, okay? So I take the call, and Gary proceeds to ask me, hey, am I allowed to be transparent and honest and real with you? Am I allowed to be, authentic? And normally when somebody says that, you're like, okay, well, this could be good. This could be like not so good, but I'm
It could
open
go
to the
either way.
Now, I want to set the tone here because this is about you guys and not about me or Gary. Okay. You can be an absolute rock star at building companies. Okay. Gary has over 500 businesses under his belt. I have almost 900. Well, as of last night, 970 businesses. Okay. Business owners that I personally sat down and consulted and did strategies with. You would think after all that, John's got his act together. John knows better, right? You would think, right? So Gary has an opportunity while I'm on vacation, minding my own business, okay, to talk with Gene here, who's on my team, to talk with Danielle, who's on my team, to talk with my staff, and he broaches me with this question: Hey, the one thing, have you been very clear? What did you say a minute ago? Have you been very clear on what their expectations are? Does that sound about right? Am I right or am I wrong?
Yeah, I asked you, I said, are you very clear of what expectations you have of everyone on our team?
Absolutely. Okay. And so, and I'm like, well, yeah, of course I am. I mean, I'm John Pyron, right? You know, um, henceforth, I'm going to segue. A lot of business owners, they have an ego, and they need someone like yourself to be honest with them. Okay. And so Gary proceeded to school me on the fact that no, you haven't been very clear with what Gene needs to do and Danielle needs to do and Mark and the other people on the team. And you know what? He's absolutely right. Okay. So here's the deal. And the only reason I'm inserting myself here into this conversation because I want you to pay very, very close attention to what Gary's going to teach from this moment for the entire time. And I want you to connect with him because here's the deal. Without a good, solid integrator, you can be the best visionary on the planet, which I consider myself to be a great visionary. Okay. But without an integrator, all you're going to do is go out and hustle and create a bunch of business where your job now owns you. Okay. And I'll close with this. Sat down with a business owner last night, strategy session, 9 employees. We talked about his revenue, just bought the business, made a lot of money, but he didn't get paid. Why? Because of processes, systems, procedures. And with that said, I'll turn it back over to you, Gary.
Okay, John, thank you for teeing me up because you spoke right into where we're going to go next, and that is that are you keeping the main thing the main thing? Another Stephen Covey quote: keeping the main thing the main thing. In other words, what are we measuring? And once we know what we want, what we're committed to, and we're able to execute and be clear with our expectations of our employees, are we keeping the main thing the main thing? Are we measuring the things that are going to move your business forward? So, for example, if you get in the car, you have a dashboard. You look at the dashboard. If you don't want to get a speeding ticket, you keep it under the speed limit. You watch your speed on the dashboard. If you don't want to run out of fuel, you look at the fuel gauge and make sure you have enough fuel to make it to the next place that you're going to be headed to, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to focus in on keeping the main thing the main thing. So we want to have something that we can measure, that we know that is, if we measure that, it's going to take our business to the next level, and it's going to meet your expectations of your own goals and your own employees and your employees' goals as well. So what kind of dashboard do we have set up? What kind of goals are in place? If you're hitting your goals, are they too low? If you're not hitting your goals, not are they too high? What can you do to move the ball forward? So what are you measuring? Are you measuring the productivity of your employees? Are you measuring new customer count? John Pyron's very, very good at measuring potential clients, future clients. Are we doing enough demonstrations and strategy sessions for our potential clients? How many people do we have in the pipeline? So John said, if if you are not good at implementation, or not a good integrator, you're going to be suffering in your business. If you're good at vision and not integration, you're suffering in your business. If you're good at integration and you don't have the vision for the future, or if you don't have key performance indicators, which is the next thing for you to write down. If you're making notes, you've got to have key performance indicators, and I'm going to give you some great examples of those right now. We want to make sure that we're measuring two sets of goals at once. Number one, the lead goal. How many potential new customers am I onboarding every month? How many clients am I getting every month? How many appointments am I making every month? How many new customers are coming through our doors every month, depending on the type of business that you have? How many sales are we making? So you want to look at the key performance indicators, your dashboard, and you don't want to just look at your profit and loss statement, because that's only going to give you a glimpse of what your business is doing. You want to have a balance sheet, and you want to pay attention to your balance sheet, but that's only going to give you a glimpse of what your business is doing. So you want to measure things like new clients onboarding, customer retention. How long are our customers staying with us if you have a repeat business? How often are we keeping in touch with our customers? Do we have a business plan, and are we following the business plan? Are we measuring the goals in the business plan? So I have a little story to give you an idea of how this works in real time. One of my clients is in Silicon Valley. He's been a client for over 4 years now. And very early in our relationship, we put in key performance indicators, a dashboard, a way of measuring, is the work that he and his team is doing, he has about 25 employees in total, are they doing what's important to move the needle forward? And I'll be very, very frank with you, he's very lucky. He has a system that got put in place by one of his employees that brings a lot of referral business into him every month. And we've been bragging about that ever since I met him. Oh my gosh, the amount of new business referrals that you guys bring in is just tremendous. And I keep telling him it's a little campfire burning. We're going to pour gasoline in that fire. We're going to keep that as a key performance indicator. How many new referred clients do we get per month? How many new onboarded clients do we get per month? How much profit are we making on profit margin and gross sales profit are we making? How many sales are we making compared this month to last month? We have a 12-month rolling average. So every month the calendar moves a month, and we look at the last 12 months. Is that number, when you divide it by 12, increasing every month? So we're looking at all of these different aspects of the business. And one day I said to him, there's a number, there's a thing on your scorecard, but there's no number behind it. It's not being measured regularly. We don't see the results of that. And what had happened is that they stopped measuring the amount of appointments that people kept in their business. They have sessions in their business. They're in Silicon Valley. They're a therapy company. And they have a number of sessions that everybody combined, all the employees combined, have. So we started measuring that as a new key performance indicator. And lo and behold, even though a couple of months the business suffered, sales were down, total income was down, profits stayed stable, but the amount of sessions rendered stayed stable as well. And then in December of last year and January of this year, it went up. It went up significantly. So some of the people that they laid off, some of the people that quit, some of the people that moved on, some of the people that they hired, it took a little time to get them integrated into the organization. And now we're looking at that, not just the 12-month rolling average of sales, not just the P&Ls, not just the profit and loss, not just the the equity in the balance sheet, not all those things, not just customer count, but we're now measuring the amount of sessions rendered. And we now look at that at sort of like a doctor would take your blood pressure or your pulse when you go in for an exam. We now look at that as the key indicator as to how the business is doing. How many referrals are we getting and how many sessions are rendered? When we know those numbers and we watch those numbers every month, we know we're measuring for the right things in our business. And we know that we can have those things be our dashboard, part of our dashboard in our business. And like the fuel gauge and the speedometer, those are the first two things we look at every month. So every month we get a report, and weekly he sees those numbers. But every month we look at the total month's report and we measure those statistics. And those are called key performance indicators. And if you don't have that, if you're not measuring it, if you're not on top of that every single week, every single month, then you're doing yourself a great disservice. And what I tell coaches, when I train coaches, what I tell independent contractors and people that are working for themselves, what you should be measuring is how many phone calls you're making, how many appointments are you making, how many people are you seeing that will get you the appointments that will get you the new clients. So you want to be measuring every single thing that you can in your business. How many new customers are we bringing in, and how many customers are exiting our business is another key performance indicator for some kinds of businesses. So the next question that we ask is, do you have a scorecard? Are you keeping score regularly of your business? And are you being totally authentic with yourself? Like John said, are you being authentic enough to be real with yourself and say, I need to work on this and this, and when those numbers go up, my business goes up, and therefore the equity in my business goes up, and therefore my succession plan is being fulfilled. And as time marches on, if you're smart enough, and someday we'll do a call on hiring the right people, if you're hiring all-star employees, and those employees are performing well, then you should be able to bring on new people, let them know what your expectations are, clearly have them understand that when the needle moves, when the key performance indicators are moving in the right direction, the dashboard is serving you and you're seeing progress being made, then your business is doing well. It's healthy, it's doing well, and that's how you measure it. Just like an odometer on a car. When you go to buy a used car, you say, how many miles does the car have on it? Has the service records been kept current? Or have you taken good care of the car? That car is worth more than one that has the opposite thing taking place. So we're looking at, what are you keeping score of, and are you keeping score regularly? And is your workday designed more around the doingness of working in your business, or are you working on your business by making sure that the dashboard is in place and you're moving the needle forward in these different areas? A number of years ago, I had a client that was doing approximately $20 million in annual revenue. They had thinner margins than the previous example that I gave. They had about 200 employees. And weekly, in our coaching sessions, the CFO of the company would give us a weekly report on the key performance indicators of that organization. And quarterly, we had meetings with all of the managers in the organization. We'd get together and they would get a printout of the key performance indicators, which included the profits, the expenses, the net profit, gross profit, all the financial indicators. But it also had how many new clients did we bring on, what was the revenue of the new clients, did we have any old clients leave, what was the revenue of the old clients. So they had a net gain every month to see how their business was doing. and they measured their business based on that dashboard. So they measured weekly. We maybe spent 20 minutes weekly looking at the key performance indicators. Quarterly, we dug in very, very deep, and we wanted to know exactly what was going on. And then annually, they did an annual assessment of how this year was compared to last year, and they had mirrored numbers of last year and this year to see how they had done. And they were very, very good at measuring their business. And when I started working with that business owner, initially he was working about 60 to 65 hours per week. After working with him for 1 year, he cut it down to 15 hours a week because he was very good at making sure everybody else focused on these key performance indicators. He was very clear on his expectations of the management team. And therefore, I taught him how to back out of the business. And he and I had lunch one day, and I said, Frank, how many hours did you work last week? And he said, I'm working about 15 hours a week. But he says, Coach Gary, I could really work 5 hours a week and I'd get the same results. He said, I don't know what to do with myself. So he says, I do show up at the office and I do some charitable work and some other things when I'm there. But he says, we have the business set up so it's running on its own. When I first met his wife, she said, I don't know what Coach Gary is teaching you, Frank, but I know you're home a lot more often and you're spending less time babysitting the business. And it's really working. And she looked at me with a big smile and said, thanks a lot. I said, I now see Frank more than I've ever seen him before in our 30-something years of marriage. So there you have it. That's what the goal is. The goal is to work less hours and to increase the performance of your business. You do it by making your expectations clear, to having key performance indicators and clear-cut goals that everybody is working on. Everybody in the organization should be focusing on the key performance indicators and the goals of the organization and doing their role in the company that fulfills those expectations and makes sure that the key performance indicators are going according to plan. Okay, so the next part of this is, how do we have our team in place that's going to help us do this? Because I've talked about at the beginning, we were going to talk about what's more important. Is it having a business that's thriving and doing well and has operations and strategies in place, or is it having a high performance team? And the answer to the question is both. Okay, so how do you have both? And that's the next part where we're going to kind of begin to land the plane here. Poor analogy in this day and age when we're having a lot too many plane crashes. We're going to bring the plane in with a safe landing. And the point is that you must learn how to hold your employees accountable. So if you have these key performance indicators, if you know what you want, if you're designing your business to provide you with working less hours, making more profits, and creating an equity position in your business that somebody else can buy, then you must learn how to hold your employees accountable. Now, what does that look like? Well, it looks different for all of us. And some of us have 1 employee, some of us have 5 employees, some of us have 100 employees. So it looks different. But one of the things that is missing in every business that I go into at the beginning of the relationship is having those key performance indicators in the job description. So if you don't have a job description for every employee, then it can usually be done in 2 pages or less. So it doesn't have to be a 10-page mini ebook on how to perform your job. But one of the things that's missing is that key performance in the job description. You're doing your job well if, and then you get a list of bullet points that reflect back on the key performance indicators of the company, that reflect back on their job. Are they doing their job? That reflect back on their performance. So it's called standards of performance in a job description. And in parentheses, invisibly, It's you're doing your job well if you're meeting these standards of performance. So let's do a brief recap because I want to get into accountability, but let's do a brief recap. So you know what you want, you know where you're going, you know what the objectives of the organization is. You're making your expectations clear to your employees. You have really clear goals. You're teaching your employees how to fulfill those goals and how important measurement in the dashboard and measurement of hitting the goals is weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And now you're holding them accountable to that. And what I'm suggesting is that the first thing you want to do is have a job description, and in there, you want to have standards of performance. So you describe your role in the company, who you report to, and then standards of performance. You're doing your job well if you're doing these 6, 8, 10 bullet points. And if you have that in place and your employees know what you're holding them accountable to, and then we're going to add quarterly reviews, go over with your employees quarter by quarter. Are they doing well? Are they doing well in these areas and maybe average in below average or below average in these areas? Are they performing the way you want them to perform, or are they doing a good job by their own opinion, based on their own expectations, but they're not meeting your expectations? And it's a chance to have a 15 to 30-minute clear conversation with them, authentic conversation. Here's what I gave you in your job description. Here's what the expectations were. And I took some notes to report to you how I feel you're doing. And I want to go over that with you today. Could be that you're doing great, keep it up. Could be you're doing great in some areas or pretty good in some areas, and you could be doing better in these other areas. Could be that you're not making the numbers in the key performance indicators. So we want to talk about that quarterly. And then you want to share with them, how can you get better? Here's some things that I see that you're doing that you could be better at. And I'm going to give you some tools to get better at these things so that you can perform at optimum. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, there's some very good reasons why they'd want to do that. Number one, they could qualify for a raise or a promotion. If the company does better, if the company makes more money, then there's room for bonuses and increases in income and salary. If the company is doing better, if the business owner is working less hours, he can spend some time teaching some of the employees how they can work less hours. Now, I'm not suggesting that you create a 30-hour work week, but that's a possibility for some. But maybe it's working remote. If they're a solid employee, maybe it's better for them to work remotely. Maybe it's there's some time for extracurricular activities, training or group coaching programs or group activities where you build the team inside of doing something outside of the office. One of my clients did something very simply. Quarterly, they had movie day. Every employee got a handful of cash, and they were required to come up with a movie as a team, and everybody's required to go to that movie that day. So they worked in the morning. Everybody left at lunchtime. They had a nice lunch together, and they had made reservations to go to a movie together. It was required that they go to the movie, but they got paid for a whole day of not doing business activities. Guess what they found out? It was bonding. People got to understand that they sat next to somebody at lunch or at the movie or in the car driving to the event, something that they didn't know about those other people in the car or at lunch at their table, something that had them understand the personal expectations of those people and how those people live their lives outside of the business. And they did some bonding. Guess what happened to productivity? Productivity increases because people get real, they get authentic, they get to know one another. So how do we hold our employees accountable? Let me just give you a list of things that you can do to hold your employees accountable. I gave you job descriptions. You should have a clear cut, and we'll talk about these in future meetings, vision statement, mission statement, and core values, so that everybody knows what you stand for and what you're holding them accountable as a character of the organization. You should have monthly meetings where all employees are required to get together, even if it's virtual. You should have a plan in place and share it with your employees. You should have goals in place and share them with your employees. You should have key performance indicators that you share with your employees, and that those are in place and they're held accountable to those expectations. So you have all these things, and you do quarterly meetings to spend 15 to 30 minutes with your employees, letting them know how they're doing. And all of a sudden performance goes through the ceiling. Now, I had planned on saying some other things, but I'm going to close with this so we can have time for questions and answers if there's somebody that has questions. If you're holding your employees if you're not holding your employees accountable, let me share with you that every major sport, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, I left one out there. All of those sports are all based on performance. They have performance reviews with their employees every single day. If your batting average goes down in baseball, that's only going to last so long. You're on the bench and they're giving somebody else a chance to replace you. If you're in football and you're one of the players and you're not performing to the coach's expectation, there's a bunch of guys sitting on the bench that are dying to get in the game. And it works the same for almost every other arena of activities in business and non-business, in the performing arts, in the arts, et cetera, et cetera. So here's the thing. We've got to be able to hold our employees accountable to what? To key performance indicators, to their job description, to what we expect them to do performance-wise. And if you're not doing that, you're selling yourself short, and you're not allowing yourself to build equity in your business, for your business to succeed, and for you to work less hours. I'm going to cut it off at that. I could go on and on and on. I have a lot more to say, but we'll save that for another day. So, Gene, can we allow people to ask questions? If somebody has a question, could they raise their hand or somehow let us know that they want to ask a question, and I'll do my best, or John will do his best to answer the question for them.
Absolutely. If any one of you have any questions, I'm sorry with my voice. Yeah, so if any one of you have a question, feel free to ask it, whether you want to unmute yourself or whether you want to set it on chat, feel free to do so.
Can they unmute themselves automatically on their end? Okay,
Yeah.
good. So you could either unmute yourself or you can hold the space bar down, and that should allow you, as long as your finger's on the space bar, should allow you to be able to ask a question. And it's not a requirement to be here to ask a question, but I love answering questions.
But Gary, if given a chance, I mean, in a situation wherein you just have to choose one between the two, what would it be? Is it like something, I mean, low performing team with a proper system, or like a high performing team with like no system at all? Which one? If you were to choose just one between the two, just one. I know both are important, but
Well, they're both equally important. But if I had to do something, assuming I was holding my employees accountable, I would put a system in place that everybody knew what was required of them. Okay, now that's a big statement, and that could get into job descriptions and org charts, all kinds of things. But I would put a system in place so that, and that's missing in most businesses. Most businesses are too busy to put systems, processes, procedures in place, and they pay a very, very dear price for it. That's why people work long hours, because they feel like, I don't know what he or she is doing, so I'm going to be there to make sure that they're performing at their best.
I don't really have a question. I just have more of a comment. I think it really depends on the business. My voice also. What the heck? it can go in phases. So in one business that I operated as a development manager, there was just two of us, and we grew that eventually to like almost 100 people. But it started with hiring the right people first, and then I had those people write the processes, right? and
Yeah.
and then now flip it on to the business I have now. I left Silicon Valley. I came and I started this business when we moved up to Northern California, and it's the opposite. I'm doing all the work, but whenever I hire it out, I want it done my way. So I write the processes, and then I hire people that match the process. So
Yeah.
it can really
Yeah,
go.
that's good. That's good. That's good. It's good. It's a good analogy of seeing how different businesses operate and different requirements for different types of businesses. Very good.
And yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think we're all set
No
here.
other questions, huh? Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We do these calls at the same time every week, and either John or I or somebody with some good, strong, powerful business information will be there to help you succeed in your businesses. So please tune in every week at the same time, and we're happy to share with you what we've learned about what makes sense and what makes businesses work.
Thank you so much, everyone. You